That wasn't great. I just got a stern talking to from the authorities telling me that I should not be doing this here. That's fine.
Hey kid, wanna buy a big truck? I'm like, yeah.
I speed wobbled it so hard when it came down.
So today I'm going to talk about my motorcycle crash. I'm going to talk about what led up to me crashing my 2015 FJ09 and why it happened. I have seen a lot of people speculating and making comments on what they think happened, and to be honest, every single one of them has been wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know what exactly did happen. And honestly, I probably would have never known what actually happened if it wasn't for the video that I managed to get. But because it all was on video, I was able to look back through it and pretty much see exactly what it was that I did wrong. And yes, I did make a mistake. I did do something wrong, and I'm willing to take accountability for that. But it is not what everybody seems to think I did wrong. So let's get into it, let's talk about it, and I'll explain to you guys what exactly happened. So basically, as you can see in the video, I do a really long wheelie. Yes, I'm chasing the wheelie. Yes, I'm not covering the rear brake. Those are both mistakes, but those are not the things that what caused me to crash the motorcycle. I do a really long wheelie, and then as I go to set it down, when the front tire touches the ground, it instantly sends me into a pretty violent speed wobble, or what's known as a tank slapper. And that is what caused me to crash. I tried to hold on to it. I knew as soon as it was happening, I knew what was happening, but it just happened super fast. It was really, really violent, and I just was not able to save it. Why my bike went into a tank slapper on this particular day at this particular time. And factor number one that I want to talk about is actually the bike. This particular bike is pretty well known to have an issue with speed wobbles. It comes down to the suspension geometry, the way that the weight is carried on the bike, the wheelbase. All of these things are factors. Yamaha did change the design of the FJ09 a bit for the next generation. It made the swing arm longer and changed the damping in the forks and stuff. And supposedly this issue was resolved on the later models. But I have the first generation FJ09, and this particular bike, it's just well known that it is a thing that sometimes it can get speed wobbles. I had experienced speed wobbles before on this bike, particularly when landing wheelies. But it was never this bad. It was always just kind of a pretty mild thing, and so I thought that it would just always be that way. The second factor is how much weight I had on the rear of the bike. Yamaha recommends that you not use the saddlebags with a top case, that you try to keep the rear of the bike light, and if you ride with a rear passenger, you're supposed to adjust the rear suspension accordingly, because any added extra weight on the rear tends to make the speed wobble condition worse. And I just hadn't noticed that I had actually put quite a lot of weight into those rear bags, and obviously I had not adjusted the rear suspension for it, so that was a mistake, and that also could have been a contributing factor here. I made it to the third factor, and this is the reason why I actually crashed at this particular time. I think it's important to note that it's not really the bike's fault, it's not really the setup or the weight in the rear or any of that that actually caused the crash. I made a mistake here, and I know that because all day long I had been riding this motorcycle and I had been doing wheelies on it all over the place, and honestly I hadn't even experienced a hint of speed wobble this day up until this point when it just absolutely violently tank slapped me. And the reason why is because I was powering out of the wheelie way too hard. Now, powering out of the wheelie is a great practice to save your fork seals if you're doing a lot of wheelies at low speeds. When you're wheeling at low speeds, if you just chop the throttle, then the bike slams down on the forks really hard, which tends to blow out your fork seals. However, at high speeds, it's not as much of an issue, and you actually want to chop the throttle a bit so that you get that front end to slam down on the nose and transfer the weight to the front tire. That is what prevents you from getting the speed wobble or a tank slapper. And on this particular wheelie, for some reason, right as soon as the nose started to come down, I started to power out of it really hard. And being that hard on the throttle means that I put a bunch of weight bias on the rear. And when the front tire touched down, it just had almost no weight on it at all, which is what caused the speed wobble and what caused me to crash. So there you go, guys. That's the deep explanation of exactly why I crashed my bike. It definitely sucks. The bike sustained some damage. I sustained some damage. I got really lucky, actually, because I was wearing all my gear, and just the way I tumbled, I actually came out pretty okay. The bike is a little bit rough. It's definitely going to need some repairs. It's going to take some time and some money to get it put back together. But I will return. I'll be back to riding soon, and, you know, things happen. Mistakes are made. It is part of the learning process, and I am still learning. Just is what it is, and there's no taking it back, so the only thing we can do is live with it and move forward. I hope you guys enjoyed this adventure, and I hope you guys will join me on my next one. See you later.